All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. We had a little bit of a tough time logging in today for some reason, but we are here and we are good to go. Okay, so today is March 25th, 2022, and I certainly want to welcome everybody to today's Stock Analysis Fridays. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to go through some administrational items really quickly here, and then we'll get going to the charts. Now, when you type your symbols in, a couple things. Please type them in caps, okay? Very important. All right, so first thing I want to go over, of course, is our presentation disclaimer. I always say without the risk, there is no reward, so the two really go hand in hand. But we do have to let you know that there are risks in trading and investing the markets. So I think that's really important to understand that. And also, it is possible to lose some or all your money actively trading the markets, but it is also possible in any forms of investment. Now, also, too, realize we don't know your personal situation, but there's people that manage your money that do, and those are your financial advisors, perhaps yourself. But please, all right, consult with them before actually making any of the trades that we recommend here, because they know your personal situation and we do not. And finally, trade with money you can afford to risk, called risk capital. Very important. All right, I've written several books available at Amazon. You can check those out. If you go to our website, there's a link in the area under education for our books, and you can check those out. We also use a complete suite of software tools. These are the ART, AL, PTF, TLM, ERI, and a whole host of scanners to find or uncover those needle in the haystack stocks that we like to trade. And then finally, we have risk reward calculators and trade size calculators for calculating your trade size and keeping track of your records as well. So that's the software that we use, and you'll see that on the charts as well. All right, let me come out of here and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so first thing I want to do is tell you once again, type your symbols in caps, because that always helps me see it. Now, I've got the Dow Jones up here real quickly, but what I want to do is just quickly go over my setup I have here. On the left-hand side, I have a 60-minute chart, then I have a daily chart in the center, and I have a weekly chart over here. So I'm looking at the same symbol. In this case, it's the Dow Jones Industrial Average across all three time frames. So I'm looking, thanks to the weekly chart, I can take a look here at the long-term aspect of the market here. And here I can take a look at the intermediate. And here I can take a look at the short term on the 60. So that's how I analyze it using multiple time frame analysis. All right, so what I want to do real quickly is go over some of the markets that we looked at before. We had a couple here. I think I'll start with the watch list here of some things that people were looking at. First one I'm going to take a look at is silver. So let me type that in here. You know, we are bullish on silver. We have been for quite some time. It is moving up. There was a period when it was moving down. You can see this on the center chart or the daily chart here. And now it has broken out of this broad channel that it's been in, and it looks really good. So we have bullish momentum as measured by what we call the OWL indicator. This is part of our software. And then we have the precision trend filter indicating more highs because it's green, and that is the daily chart. And then if we drop down to the 60-minute chart, we see a similar scenario here, and we also have a pyramid trading point indicating a long position here. And now we've got momentum, as you can see on this chart here, on the weekly chart, kicking in at this particular point here. So it really looks poised for a good long trade. I think you should in the short term get up to around 28 bucks, possibly to 34 bucks. So you can definitely look to go long on that. All right, the other one I wanted to take a look at is gold. And give that just a second to load on your end there. Okay, so on the gold chart here, I'm going to open up the weekly chart so you can see actually the longer term aspect. So on gold here, we had back in 2011 a wave 3. Then we had a fairly long correction, lasted all the way from 2011 all the way to 2016. So you're talking about a good 5 years of a classic correction, and that's what we got there. Then in 2016 we kind of pulled out, but it really kind of went sideways for a little while and then popped out in around 2019 and never looked back. So now that's, it made an immediate high here. Now what's interesting here, and this is how valuable this one indicator can be. If you look down here at the PTF, notice it's green down here. And in that green area, it's indicating more highs are coming. And we're already in the wave 5 target zone, which is up here. This is your wave 5 target zone right here. But it shows that it has more highs to come. And even now, it's poked back into the target zone, but it remains green. So you kind of want to stay long there. I'd put my stop right here under this pyramid here. And that's about a low of about 163.79 would be a good place for a stop on a long-term position here. So you kind of definitely want to stay with that as much as possible. All right. So definitely check that out. All right. Is there sound? I'm hearing that we may not have sound. Is there no sound? That would be bad. Okay, great. So sound, I'm getting told sound is good. So if you're having trouble with sound, log out and log back in. All right, so this is gold. Okay, this is gold here. And so I would remain long on gold. All right, the next one we want to take a look at is some of the cryptos here. Now, I've got GBTC here. Okay, and here is the actual ETF. And let's open up that weekly chart as well on this one. Now you can see that we had a really nice high back over in this area here. And this was again back around, I'd say the beginning of 2021, I guess. And then after that, it has trailed off, made one more low. What we're thinking here is it's very possible we could have a bottom here. Now, we still have bearish momentum, but look at this baby here. This is green, which is indicating we're going to get one more high on this market. So this might be a good place to think about a trade. Now, notice we've got some up and down triangles. Those are pyramid trading points. One's pointing down and one's pointing up, and they're blue in color. All right, they are showing that we're in a sideways motion. And when that breaks out, the one pointing up will turn green, indicating an entry. The one pointing down, if the market breaks down and goes down, that will turn red, and the other one will go away. So it might be a good idea to wait until we get a pyramid to the upside before going long on this. Just saying, okay? Things are looking bullish on the lower time frames. So, you certainly, if you wanted to be aggressive, you could go in and put your stop at the very, very bottom here. That way, if you're stopped out, that means that that is not a bottom. And that's how you want to be stopped out. You don't want to be stopped out on normal market volatility. In other words, the breathing up and down of the markets. Instead, what you want to do is if you get stopped out, it's because a particular key level of support was taken out if you're going to go long, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, so it looks like sound is good. Great to have everybody. So GBTC is kind of an interesting one here. We'll keep an eye on that one. Anybody else have any in the crypto area they want to take a look at? Let me know. All right, let's take a look at some of the picks that actually we liked, okay? These are ones that we actually recommended. AYX was one. So let's just type in that and see how that's cooking. So this one here, we like this for a long position, and sure enough, okay, look at it. It's been going up since our last session. So this has turned out really, really good. And I would stay long on this. We still have a green PTF on the daily chart. Now, we're expecting this to go to around $99.82, which is what the chart on the far right hand side is telling us. So we got a ways to go on this, but you got to be very careful not to have your stop too close at this particular point. So I would say you could put your stop at this point under here, and you're good to go. Now we have a yellow, I don't know if you can see that at home, but let me just widen this out here. We have a yellow PTF now on the 60-minute chart, a lot of pyramids, so we're probably going to get a pullback on this. Now if you're just trading this little move up, then have your stop right under here, okay, on this chart here. So if you're going to just take a little bit of profit on this leg, then your stop needs to be under this pyramid here, which is going to be, if I can find it, 68.41. 68.41. Okay, so that's a key place right there. All right, otherwise I'd stay long, keep your stop far away, and you should make it to the target zone. All right, so that's looking pretty good. All right, let's see what else we got. White Lion, how are you today? White Lion has done a very good job of picking some real good winners in the past. So today he wants to look at RIOT. All right, RIOT. RIOT is the blockchain mining company for, of course, cryptos. So I'm going to let that load here a little bit. All right, I'm going to open up the long-term chart. So here's the deal on this. Right away, my eyes go right to this and this. So the owl's telling us we're in a wave 3, and that's this big move up. We've had a big correction down. Question is this a bottom, right? That's the million-dollar question. Well, we're going to take a look at different time frames and see if that can help us, okay? Now, so in this case here, we've got a green PTF, and so we should see more highs. But let's see about the timing situation, okay? All right, now, if we look at the daily chart, not as bullish as the weekly chart. Let's open this bad boy up. All right, so this has a red PTF still. So, and it's kind of indicating that this bottom here is not in yet. So I would not go long here yet. I would wait until that PTF either abruptly turns green or the market turns down, makes another low, and it finally goes yellow. All right, momentum is starting to come in, but I would not go against that indicator. That indicator is right about 75% of the time. Next question is going to be, well, how can you have an indicator that's bearish on the daily but bullish on the weekly? And it's a very simple answer. It's indicating the overall long-term aspect of this particular market, which is RIOT, is bullish. But the short term, it's coming down a little bit. So it's still in a correction in a long-term uptrend. That's how you got to look at that. So I would stay out of that. All right, the 60-minute chart has been bullish on this little move up here. Okay, that's what you're looking at over here. But in terms of timing for a longer term type of trade, I think I would hold out on that, okay? And White Lion, yes, White Lion, Gene tells me White Lion is a girl. Okay, hello there. Sorry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and see what else we got here. All right, we got AVLR. AVLR. Give that a chance to load here. All right, so let's see what we got cooking here. All right, so obviously it's been moving down. And again, if you go from left to right, notice that the 60-minute chart is showing bullishness, but it's starting to kind of settle down. The momentum is kind of moving to the downside. We no longer have any green here. So this move here represents this move here. You see that? So it's kind of like putting the daily chart under the microscope. So you got to be careful when you're looking at the 60-minute chart to also look at the longer time frames to see what that move represents in terms of the overall larger picture here. So you're still technically on the short-term chart short. And here's your pyramid trading point stop. So if you've been trading this, you've been doing real well, right? Because you've been going down for quite some time. So you want your stop on this pyramid, and that's where I would keep it here. And that stop is at 105.48. We do have now a green owl, so we do have some momentum coming in. So it's very possible we could get a correction off this, but I wouldn't go long on this yet. And I'd also make sure that you have enough room for a profit. So if we draw a fib retracement from here to here, you can certainly see that it's possible to get up into this corrective area here of around 117, close to 118 actually, to 145. The trend is still down on the long-term chart, so any long trade here is going against the long-term trend. So this would be considered a counter trend trade. So you got to be careful on those. All right, so that's a good one to look at though. I appreciate that. All right, Patricia, how are you? TEK. Let's take a look at TEK. Give that a second to load. All right, let's take a look at the longer term weekly chart on this. All right, so here's where we got a situation, kind of interesting here. So we have got a huge amount of momentum, you can see right here on the owl, right in this area here, huge. And so that's kind of interesting because what that is showing us here is that, and then I'm talking about right here, is that this thing is in a strong uptrend currently. Now, we have a yellow PTF. It's close to trying to go green here, but it's not quite there yet, but it wants to. But this is in a strong uptrend, and your stop should be right about here based on the pyramid of a low of around 26.48. All right, so that's the weekly chart. Every price bar here represents a full week, so that's what you're looking at there. Now, if we drop this down here and take a look at the daily, let's see what's cooking inside that big trend. So we've got a very strong owl here as well, but it is starting to get a little bit down, okay? In other words, we're kind of starting to see it diminish a little bit. We no longer have a green PTF here, but we still have a stop far away at some point as well. Now, just as a side note, when you get a breakaway market here, the pyramids are trying to keep you in the longer term trend. So they will be very strict in how they form. But what we do in our software is we give you key pivot points to make decisions. And that's these 1Bs and Gs up here standing for greed. So in these areas here, you could scale out when prices hit the exit entry for these short-term indicators. But they are not to be used to scale out of the trend with your entire position, only a part of it. So we call that scaling out. And we allow you to do that twice using the rules here around the software. So there are some possible places where you could scale out on these red signals in the opposite direction of the uptrend. But for right now, I mean, it is definitely powering up. You don't want to take a short position on this. Do not go against the heavy momentum bullish momentum on the long-term chart. So be very careful with that. Now, short term, if we look at the 60-minute chart, check this out. We got a red PTF. So this is saying that we are in a little bit of a correction here, and we're probably going to head back down a little bit here. That does not necessarily mean you want to short it at this point unless you're taking a trade only for a few days or a week. So we're probably going to have a little softening here at some point, but overall, after that softening, the trend up should continue. So I hope that helps. Good one to look at. All right, Stuart, how are you? PYPL. Let's see what's cooking here. All right, so we looked at this last week, and I think we were kind of hoping we'd get some type of bottom here for a corrective trade. Let's open up the weekly chart first here. And you certainly can see here that, that's heading down. We've had a number of price bars in a row. We're probably due for a correction up here. Statistically, when you get a move this straight down, you get some type of rebound at some point, obviously, right? So this is very strong, and this is still bearish. So even if you get a rebound, all right, the trend is still down, and it should go back down after the rebound. So keep that in mind as you're analyzing this stock. Well, what does that mean? Well, here we drew in last week Fibonacci retracements of where we think that rebound is going to go. So we're thinking it's going to go up to 170 to 219. 170 to 219. So that's your target. We're sitting at 112. So if you wanted to try to take a long trade, which would be considered a counter trend trade, you could do that. All right, you'd have to put your stop at the very bottom down in this area here. But look here, if you go in here and you put your stop here, the distance between your entry and the exit is almost the same as the distance between your entry and the target zone of the rebound. And so that's your risk to reward we're looking at here. And so we like to have that distance to our reward, our profit, our target zone to be twice as great as the distance to our stop, which in this case would be the bottom. So this would probably be not quite 2 to 1. Now, doesn't mean eventually you might not be able to take it because maybe it'll pull back and give you that 2 to 1, but we do have a green PTF on the 60-minute chart. So we very, very possibly could be going into that target zone, but it is a risky trade because with an owl and a weekly chart so bearish that you may not make it quite up to the target zone, may just go up here and come back down. So we're still in a big move down on the weekly, so I would stay away from long trades really at this point because the risk to reward's not there, but a really good one to look at. Great. All right, let's take a look for white line on Agilent, and that's stock symbol A. All right, so let's open up the weekly chart first. I think that's easier for everybody to see. Notice here, okay, we've got a situation where we had a wave 3, and the owl's helping us tell us that. Wave 4s have to have a red, and we have that below. And so now let's kind of get an idea of where this thing could be going, right? Let's start here and go up here. Let me just make sure that's a good starting point. You always got to look when you're drawing in fibs of where the low is. So here's the low. Got to move up here. Actually, probably we could move this a little. Won't make that much difference, but we'll move it a little bit here because that's the first significant pullback after the bottom. All right, so notice we came close to getting into the target zone. So the target zone for this is between 119 and 82. All right, notice the PTF is green. That's this indicator down here. So after this correction, we expect it to get higher, make a new high. And that's what the PTF is saying with a 75% probability. What the PTF does not tell you is when the correction is over, and it does not tell you how long it's going to take to get to an area where it rebounds and then makes another high. But it is telling you, it's giving you the confidence, though, of telling you the uptrend is not over. So, all right, so we still got a pretty strong owl, which is right here, measuring momentum. So it's still bearish. We got some bearish pyramids that have come in as well. So looks like we're still heading down. Now, in terms of probability, 70% of the retracements occur in this area between 38.2 and 61.8 on the fib retracement target zone. So in between those blue lines is a 70% area where wave 4s usually go. Sometimes wave 4s get shallow, they fail, and they end up in this red zone between 23.6 and 38.2. So you always have to be on the lookout for that. But I prefer, with my trading rules, I only take a long trade after it's been in the high probability trading zone. And then the other 15% is even going lower, but not exceeding a wave 1 high, okay? So in this case here, all right, let's see what the lower charts tell us. All right, so I'm going to open up now the daily chart where we can put this under a microscope. We still technically, all right, we may have a bottom here, okay? It's possible. We have no more red PTF, so that's a good indication. We've got a little momentum coming in. We still got an active pyramid down here. So we didn't hit the target zone on the weekly. This is trending sideways, and we still have an active pyramid down. Let's see what this one shows here. Okay, this has bearish on the owl here, and no more green PTF. I would not go into this yet. All right, let's see how this resolves itself a little bit. At the very least, you want to have a green owl on the 60-minute chart at the very, very least. Okay, so I think that's important. Okay, so I think I'd hold off a little bit on that one. Okay, John, how are you? Let's take a look at MERC for you. All right, let's open up that weekly chart first. All right, a little on the messy side. Okay, it's kind of like ice cream dips almost. Okay, so when you look at that chart, it's kind of messy. That's a weekly chart too, and that goes back to 2000. So interesting, right? Not a lot of movement on this stock overall. It is, let's take a look at the current momentum. So it is bullish right now. You have a retracement, and then you have two brand new pyramids, but no PTF high help here. So hard to really distinguish what kind of movement that is. Is this a 3, 4, 5? Could be. All right, certainly could be. And if that's the case, let's see what kind of extensions are possible here. All right, so a possible high is 17, 21 to 22. Problem is you got to put your stop here at the bottom of this pyramid. So that's 1127. So your risk to reward is not there. Let's take a look at the daily chart and see if that helps us any. All right, so that is showing a more robust rebound here. But again, your targets are going to be the same. Okay, so it's kind of a little bit on the movement to the upside, and we have a bullish chart on the 60-minute too. So there's no question that it is in a bullish mode, and I feel pretty confident that we're going to get to that $17.21 price at the very least, but it could go higher. So you got to be a little careful on this one. Maybe cut your trade size down and put your target in at 1955. Okay, that would be about the best you could do on this short term. Okay, so long only, don't go short, whatever you do. All right, let's see what else we got cooking here. Google, okay, GOOG. I think we might have looked at this one last week, not sure. Let's see what we got cooking on Google. All right, first thing, let's open up that weekly chart. All right, what a big move, huh? So if you go back to 2015, Google has been nothing but trucking on up. So no question about being a wave 3, all right? Look at the huge amount of momentum on the owl for that. So now it looks, this is interesting. So now we have a negative owl here. All right, so let's see what we're cooking on here. Let's grab some fib retracements and see what kind of possibility we have on this. And I'm going to pick right about here. I draw my fibs from 2 to 3. So if this isn't a wave 4 correction, we're thinking about getting down between 2256 and 1768 on that. If you were in a long position, you did really nice, but you've already been stopped out. Okay, this pyramid took you out here, so you locked in profits. So the next question is this just a minor correction? It's already hit the 15% probability zone, or are we going down further? At this particular case, I probably would wait to see if we're going down further. Now, if we make another high on this instead before going down, then we'll redraw our fibs, because that probably means we're still in wave 3. All right, so are we in wave 3 or are we going into wave 4? According to the owl, we have a red owl right now. So that's an indication that has to be red for it to be even considered a wave 4 at this point. And we don't have a green PTF, so okay, that's neutral. Let's see what this bad boy tells us. All right, so here's a little bit, this is a daily chart, and what stands out to me is the red PTF, indicating more lows before more highs. All right, so chances are we're in wave 4 that's not finished yet. So no long position on this. And you can see we even have a red PTF on the 60. So even though the owls on the daily and the 60 are bullish, the overall longer term aspect on Google right now is it's in a wave 4 correction, as we can see with the target zone on the weekly chart on the far right. So I would not go long, not against a red PTF. All right, so that's kind of where I'm looking at that. Now, you can go long later after we hit the target zone on the retracement, but not now. Not quite ready yet. All right, let's see. Look, AMC for White Lion. Grayson, is that you? I couldn't remember if that was you or not. I think that might be you. All right, so let's see what this bad boy says here. Get my indicator straightened out. All right, so AMC, let's take a look at this bad boy. All right, huge move down. All right, in this case here, this is not a wave 4 because it's already retraced way too far. So even though the owl sets a wave 3, when the retracement goes below a wave 1, it's got to be a wave 2, chances are, especially with the green PTF. Now, this would be a wave 1, 2, so the next one's going to be a big 3, right? All right, so kind of remember that. So should we go long yet? No. All right, because we still have a fairly bearish owl. Let's just see what the short-term charts are indicating. All right, so we want to, the short-term charts here are starting to show a move slightly to the upside. We are getting that. So the question now comes is this a bottom or not? Possible, could be. And if so, you do want to get in early, right? Let's see what the 60-minute chart is. That's pretty bullish too. So based on the lower time frames, you technically could take a long trade here. And the idea is put your stop at the bottom here. And if you're, if your stop's, I'm going to go to the weekly chart for a minute, but if your stop here, let's open that up for just a minute here. If your stop is below here, then look at where your entry is and look at your possible reward. Okay? That's like 4 or 5 to 1. So that's pretty good, huh? So that's not a bad one. The only big risk you have, you've already taken out the pyramid, so you're no longer short. The only risk is you have this, but with the lower time frame so bullish, it's worth a trade. Okay? So far I like AMC best, believe it or not, even though we have a bearish owl significantly on the weekly chart. So AMC is a real good one so far. What do you think, guys? So I think that looks like a pretty decent one to go long on and put your stop at the bottom. And you're going to have to be in this for a long time. You don't want to necessarily trade the daily chart. This would be a trade off the weekly chart. Okay? So weekly long on this. All right, let's keep going here. All right, very good, Grayson. I thought you might be White Lion. Okay, after Gene said that. All right. Let's see what else. Okay, TLRY. TLRY. Let's take a look here. All right, so let's analyze the weekly first and rotate it right around to the shorter time frames. All right, so as you can see, this is definitely bottoming here, okay? What's interesting here, and your eyes should go right away to the green PTF. Now, what did I tell you about the PTF? It doesn't tell you how long it's going to take before it's justified or proven correct. And obviously, this is taking quite a long time on the weekly chart. But it's showing at some point it should return. Now, what creates a bullish or bearish PTF is extreme momentum on the spikes, both up and down. And so that spike created that. We have no real trades to the upside generated yet at this time. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. We're starting to see the momentum here as compared to here. So this was a big selling area. Then it kind of went over here, got a little bit of excitement here. Some news probably came out, but then went flat again. So now pretty much everybody that's out is out at this point. So any news, any positive news when these bottom fishing type of stocks occur, can really make them pop. But the key is you don't want to have your money tied up in something like this until it pops, because you could put your money to work someplace else while you're waiting. So what do? All right, let's look at the lower time frames and see if there's anything here. All right, so we can put this under a microscope a little bit. We still have a bearishness here. Things are starting to pop up, but we have got to have a little bit more excitement in this stock before I would start to get involved. And you can certainly see this little spike up that we have on the daily chart as pretty extreme on the 60 minutes. So that's a good sign. So I would wait for this to turn green. All right, and if you want to try to put your money in this, just realize that you need to put your stop at the very bottom. You have cleared this, you have no more shorts here, but we want to see some follow through. All right, so be careful on this one. This is one where you could go in and you might be in for a long time. So I think you got to think of it more as a long haul type of thing. But the lower time frames may justify an entry if you get a green owl. You don't have it yet on the daily chart. So let's look at that next week, okay? All right, let's see what else we got cooking. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Now I wanted to mention here that on the recording, what I'm doing, thanks to a suggestion from Stuart, is I'm actually dividing the stocks up into chapters, okay, into chapters. So when you look at the recording, if you want to go to a specific stock, you just click on the stock symbol and it will take you right to the place in the video where we're analyzing it. So we're going to try to do that for every recording, which I think will be really helpful. But in order to find the chapters, you have to, under the description, select See More, because they're kind of hidden unless you select that. All right, let's keep going here. Okay, so white line, IR. Okay, so IR now is in a corrective mode as well, and I say that simply because, this long, see this thing, long owl here is now going into the negative territory. So we've got a red PTF still, so we're heading down. Looks like the low point in the red PTF is way over here. Okay, so in that case there, that's a long way down. So and the short term is red as well. So basically I would not go long here. We got too much momentum to the downside. It's too late to go short right now. I would wait until you get any type of rebound, but notice the pyramids had you in quite a while ago, so it's a little bit on the late side. Doesn't mean it might not go down a little further, but I don't think you got the risk to reward. What usually happens, let me just run this over. Anytime you miss a trend, getting in early, right away you'll have one movement or a wave in that trend. If you miss it, wait for the rebound. Now, you all often heard me talk of points of inflection. Points of inflection, basically, very simply speaking, is the middle ground between where the trend or wave started and where it ended, and usually you get a movement up to that area. It's almost like a fib retracement, right? So this could be a good area to go short if you missed it. But don't chase trends, and that's the way I like to do it. All right, that's based on my belief system. I'm not a chaser. If I miss something, then I look for those points of inflection if I think there is more opportunity to still get into the short side. All right, so that is IR, and that one was for Grayson. Okay, AMD. Let's take a look at good old AMD for Patricia here. Give that a second to load. All right, very interesting here. All right, so we got a green PTF. This is the weekly chart. Wave 3, you can definitely just see it from the way and how fast these wave 3s move. So here we are. Now, very interesting point. So in this case here, notice we had a little bit of a red PTF. This would have been a wave 3 if this, if you were looking at this here. But it never retraced enough. And then it rebounded, and take a look at the owl here. Far exceeded the power of the momentum on this move here, far exceeded this, which is indicating that this entire move is still wave 3. Okay, so now it looks like we are going into wave 4 at this point. And then the next question is, where's the target for this wave 4? Well, let's go ahead and draw that in. So we want to go and grab some retracements. Take a look. I think I'll use this point here as wave 2. You could possibly use that point there. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Let's try that, just see. If you ever have 2 points that you question which one is wave 2, do them both. And chances are they actually won't make that much of a difference. So we've hit the target zone, good sign. We still have a bearish owl. Let's just take a look here. All right, so in order for wave 4 to be over, this would have to be a fairly quick ABC down like that. The other alternative, of course, is not so quick. This would be A, B, C. So you always got to think that that could be a possibility. Doesn't mean you don't take a possible trade, assuming the first scenario, but realize that if you get stopped out, that's probably the reason why the second scenario kicked in. All right, so what do you do in a case like this? Okay, you still have a red owl here. Let's go to the lower time frames. Let's open this bad boy up here. This is indicating the wave 4 is not over. Again, 75% probability, not 100%, but when that is red, I listen to it. So I would not go long here. This is saying that the correction's not over, and again, this little blip up is being represented over here. So, all right, so, okay, so that helped us answer the question. Probably not quite over yet. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to get a rebound to the inflection point on the weekly chart. Remember inflection points here, here, here. You'll probably get a move up to here, but then it should falter again, according to the red PTF on the daily chart. That's the power of using multiple time frame analysis with great tools, okay? AMD, so good. All right, let's keep going on here. A lot more symbols coming in, so this is great. NVIDIA is the next one for Alan. NVDA. All right, so let's see what we got cooking. Obviously, we looked at this one, okay? So here's NVIDIA. All right, back up into the target zone. Okay, so we drew this thing hoping the correction was over last time. But notice what's very interesting about this. It looks to me like we went lower here, didn't it? So we really didn't have a low in yet. Interesting. That's kind of very rare. But in any case, that's a tough one, okay? So we've bounced back up. We have a green PTF. So is wave 4 over? So what we're looking at here is maybe an A, B, C bottom, okay? So I think it's probably at this particular point done. So let's remove that. Let's remove this and instead replace that with the next wave 5. So last week we were trying to go in to see if that wave 4 was over. I'd say it's probably it could be over at this point. We're going to look at the lower time frames and see what they say, of course. But let's draw this in like this. So first I'm going to draw the fib retracements and see if that did hit the area of retracement. Okay, so notice on the fib retracements we did reach the high probability area. Okay, let's go to the lower time frame and see what we got. Okay, so we no longer have a red PTF there. So let's go back to here. All right, assuming that the bottom is in, let's remove this and draw our extensions. All right, there's your target, 403 to 527. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Let's take a look here. We got bullishness, bullishness, bullishness. Again, If you feel you want to wait for a better price, then you're just going to have to wait for this move to end and then do the points of inflection. If you wanted to go in right now, I think probably at this time you're okay. And put your stop at the very bottom. And don't be too aggressive in moving it, because you'll never make the target zone if you are. So I would basically at this point, since you got momentum going your way on the lower time frames, I would make this a longer term trade and put the bottom here. If you make your target about 462, I think you got about a 2-to-1 risk to reward. So I'm liking this, okay? I'm liking this. You can always do options on these things too. Once you know the target price, then you can go ahead and figure out a possible option. All right, so NVIDIA goes on our list as a good one. Okay, so far we got AMC and NVDA. All right, thanks Alan for sharing that one. That's a good one. All right, does he not see my request? AG, I don't think I do. All right, can you type it in again? Okay, now I see it. MERC. Okay. You know, they come across so fast on the thing, sometimes I miss them, so I apologize if that happened. All right, so AG, let's see what we got here. Good old MERC. All right, let's take a look at MERC. Oh boy, funky price bar there. All right, look at this price bar. Whoop. Okay, so they got to correct the data on that one. So let's see what's cooking. Pretty messy chart, isn't it, on MERC? Not the most thrilling. Now, if you took a long trade for years on this, or at least, yeah, 1 year, that would have been a great trade. But now it's sloppy. All right, that's a sloppy trade. That's a corrective type of environment. So you got red and red on the lower time frames here. I mean, you got a little bit of a move up here, but this is red. This is red, indicating that any move to the upside is temporary. So if anything on this, all right, I would wait for the 60-minute chart to turn bearish, and then maybe take a short trade just based on the PTF here. You know, that'd be like a scalp trade. But otherwise, I wouldn't do anything with MERC. Okay, it's not my favorite. Let's take a look at Facebook. All right. So Facebook has definitely entered a big issue to the downside. Look at the momentum on the owl. Incredible. Okay, so, and look, the PTF is red as well. So in a case like this, you definitely don't want to be long. Now, doesn't mean you might not get, remember the points of inflection, you still, whoops, sorry about that, you still could get a rebound here, but the overall move is down. So let's take a look and see what the daily chart is showing you, and you can certainly see the extended down there. So I think probably right now we're due for a rebound. We're starting to see bullishness come in on the owl, which is an indication of a change in the movement here. So I would say probably a rebound is due, and if you want to be really conservative about it, you're probably talking about somewhere into 248 to 288 for a max, and we're at 220. Again, think about risk to reward on something like this. When you have a breakout here, if you put your stop here and your target is here or here, you don't have the risk to reward. And what are you going to, you can't just guess and put your stop anywhere here, because the problem is the volatility can stop you out. So when you're thinking risk to reward, a lot of people, what they do is they'll adjust their stops until the risk to reward makes sense. But the problem with that is you're usually putting a stop at an arbitrary place based on your risk to reward calculations, instead of calculating the risk to reward after you know where the stop should go based on market activity. So that's kind of the way you want to do it. So in this case here, no, I don't think there's any trade here at this point. All right, hopefully AG that helps. Thanks. Okay, all right, let's see. Yeah, if I miss one, just type it in again or let me know. You know, that happens, okay? ASPN. All right, let's take a look at this one for Key. How are you doing, Key? All right, let's open up this bad boy. Love that wave 3. Oh my gosh. So if you got in early on this big move up after 2 here, 1, 2, there's the pyramid entry, you would have been stopped out way up here, okay? So that would have been a long-term trade, obviously. All right, what are you going to do now? All right, pretty bearish owl still, green PTF, and we're going to have to go and look in the daily chart to see if we see the ABC of this correction. So the question once again, and this is always the question, is this the bottom? That's supposed to be a question mark, not a number 7. Sometimes it's hard to write here. All right, so is this a bottom? All right, so this is a 3. Possibly see some type of A, B, C. That means it's pretty quick. And of course, the other scenario is A, B, C, and then boom. Let's first take a look here and just see where the fib retracement show. So if this is 1, this is 2, let's draw our fibs in off 2 and 3. And we hit that, and we're okay. Okay, this is not 1. This is 1 way back here. So we went into the 15% area, but past the 70. All right, good. So that is definitely a possibility of a wave 4 being in. Let's take a look at the lower time frames. Let's take a look at the daily. All right, so we're starting to see a move up. Now, we'll probably get a pyramid in here someplace to the upside if this pulls back. All right, so the next pullback may form a pyramid after it pulled back and go up and completes the definition of the uptrend. We do have a higher low here and a higher high. So this, if you wanted to take an early entry, you could do it here. You've got green here, no red down here, yellow's okay, and we have some green here. But you know, look at this. So here is the movement on the 60-minute chart, that chart on the far left. Notice that's pretty strong. So we're probably due for an inflection correction. That's a good, I shouldn't term that term, inflection correction. All right, so we're probably due for that. So if you wanted to wait a little bit, you could. If you wanted to go in right now, you definitely at this point have a 2-to-1 risk to reward. We'll go back to the weekly chart because it's easier to see. But if your stop is down here and the PTF is basically saying here is your high, all right, there's your distance for risk, and you've got at least 2 up there. So even if this was just a PTF trade, you would have the risk to reward. Let's go ahead and draw the fib extensions in here though and see where the overall target zone could be. And it's right smack where the PTF is. So this would actually be an okay long position. So I'm going to put this down as one you can take to this week. So ASPN is another one on our list for today. All right, and that's from Keith. Thank you, Keith. All right, let's see. All right, Stuart, DE. Give that a second to load there. I'm going to pop these indicators up on this 60 so we can see them a little bit clearer. You know, you can just move them around wherever you need them. All right, I'm going to do that over here too. Little cosmetic rearranging here. Give me 1 second. There we go. All right, so let's take a look here. All right, so here's an example of what I think is something that still probably is in a wave 3. Now, let's go ahead and grab some retracements. I would say I'm going to use here to here. So on this first pullback, before we got prices up, notice it did not hit the high probability area. We had the red owl, but it didn't hit it. So I'm kind of thinking probably not enough of a retracement for it to be a 4. So I'm going to call this a 3 still. Now, we no longer have a green PTF, and we have bearish divergence. So we're getting ready to hit a area where this thing sells off. But we're not quite there yet. Still moving up on the daily and still moving up on the 60-minute. So would I take this as a long trade today? No. It's too extended. You missed it. I would wait for the retracement and then go long after the retracement again. But if you're in it, then have your stop right around 360. Okay, give it a little room. Could go higher. All right, so that is D. It's not one of my favorites, put it that way. All right, John's got UCTT. UCTT. Let's take a look at that one. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, so big move up. Notice how the owl is showing you that this particular indicator indicates a wave 3. It's much higher than this one. So at this particular point, notice here, if you thought this was a wave 3, look at the retracement. Way too far for a wave 4. So that's probably a 1, 2, and more than likely, I'm going to say probably a 3. Let's draw some fib retracements in. This one might be a little bit tougher to analyze than some of the others. Every once in a while you get kind of a toughy one. All right, so let's take a look at here and go up to here. So you're still in a corrective area here. Notice that this high here did hold, so that's your 3. So the question is, what's going on? Well, your bottom, let me just make sure, let's see what the bottom is here. Okay, so we've already gone below here, the bottom here. So this is still 4, so maybe this is an A, B, C, okay? There are possible alternate scenarios here. One being that this could have been a failed 5 because you did hit the retracement zone. Okay, that's a possibility. That's an alternate wave count. But with a green PTF, I don't think that's the case. That's where the PTF comes in. Again, having the right tools is everything, and knowing how to use them is, of course, everything too. All right, so we're in the target zone. We've got a little bearishness. Let's see if this trend is done to the downside yet. In other words, do we have a bottom in? Let's go to the charts here. Okay, so we still have a little bit of red owl on the 60 and on the daily, but we do have a green PTF. So here's how I would play this. I would wait for the owl to turn green on both of these lower time frames before considering a trade. And then I'd put the stop at the very bottom if you want to get in early. So this is not quite ready yet, but let's keep an eye on that one, okay? All right, next one is TITN. TITN. All right, let's take a look at this one here. Nice big move to the upside. Wave 3 of some type, but let's double check that. All right, so this is what I call the ice cream, dip-de-doodle, okay? You know, you went up and down. So, all right, so we got a kind of right now, a current channel in place between here and here. So we're kind of in this area here where I probably would not consider a trade. This is not one of my favorites. Got a green PTF on the lower time frames, but the market is still heading down, as you can see on the 60. So I would hold off on doing anything with this. We'll take a look at it next week, okay? All right. I think that we'll do one more. We'll do a couple more, and that's it. I think we'll end with Terry. Terry, you'll be the last one with PFE. Patricia, let's do yours, IWM. I usually like to try to keep these sessions, you know, around an hour or under. So we're kind of reaching that time frame now. So, and we've looked at a lot, which is great. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. All right, we looked at this before, right? We had a big move out here, big owl here. So the difference between something like this is notice it was a little bit messy over here, but then look at the owl, huge owl indicating 3. We got down here to the target zone. We still have an active pyramid, I believe. Let me just check that out, see if prices have taken that particular ledge out yet. Let's move that up here. So the high on the flat part of that triangle facing down, which is a pyramid trading point, is 209.06, and we've got 208.79. So we haven't breached that quite yet. So technically, this would be considered still in a downtrend. We did hit the target zone. We have red momentum. All right, so based on this, we don't want to go long yet. Okay, lower time frames, we're kind of seeing that movement. All right, you know, it's kind of going sideways. It needs to go up a little higher to take out that pyramid on the weekly chart. But so far, not really too much other than the channeling you can see here on this. But we do have a red PTF on the 60, so we're probably heading down some more. So let's see where that red PTF originated. Let's find the lowest low in that red area, and that's going to be here around 191 or something. So chances are we don't have a bottom in yet. So you don't want to go long on this. But keep an eye on it. When it gets down there a little bit more, let's keep an eye on that one. That one's a watch lister, okay? All right, Terry, you got the last one, PFE. Let's take a look at PFE. You've got a second to load, and let's see what's cooking. All right, so, all right, after it bottomed out in 2020, okay, it's been kind of on a tear to the upside. We've got a green PTF, so that tear is not quite over. However, we've got an owl very close to going bearish at the bottom here. So, you know, this thing could go into a correction and still remain green on the PTF. So you got to be careful here. All right, let's take a look at this here. We got a red PTF over here. All right, so that's a little concerning. We're probably going to go lower than this area here because that's about the same price as here. So this is the same as here. So in a case like this, that forming pyramid was going to go away if the PTF is correct. So I probably would not do anything on this. You know, if you're in it, you know, you start trailing your stops. But if you're thinking about going in it, I wouldn't do anything here. So I think it's going to come down before it goes up. And if it comes down below anymore, then you'll have a red PTF and it'll be in correction. So if you're in it, probably put your stop right about here. Okay? If you're in it for the long haul, then use this stop here. You know, you can do a combination of scaling out and things like that. All right? So you can definitely take a look at that. All right, let's see what else here. So what do we got cooking here and here? Got so much here. All right, so let me just quickly look at the Dow here real quick before we call it a day. And give me 1 second on that. All right. Look at the red PTFs across the board on the Dow. That's not a good sign, folks. Okay. I suggested short positions on the Dow a while ago for a long-term short. And so, you know, we'll see how that works out. You know, we're not always right, okay? And when we're wrong, that's when risk control saves the day. But you can never take the 100% of the risk out of the trade. So remember that, all right? Go with what your tools tell you and use risk control. And there's usually always an alternate possibility as well. All right, so let me put my face on here and just thank everybody so much for coming today. Really appreciate it. Great to have you here as always. And we'll see you back here next week. So I think the 3 stocks that I liked this week was AMC, NVIDIA, NVDA, and ASPN. ASPN, correct. Yeah, so those are the 3 I really liked today. So if you took the time to come, you picked up 3 good possibilities, I think, today. So really good. Just remember to always use risk control. All right, any last minute questions or anything? I think we're good, right? All right, what a great group, okay? And the more we get here, the more possibilities. I don't mind staying as long as it takes to get through these because I love this stuff, and I know you do too, and I think it really helps everybody, so it's a really good thing. All right, so thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next week. Have a good one, everybody.